Guest list heavy, big names abound, academic and professional leaders, knowledge profound. Gary May, Robert Langer, Golden Sound, podcast lit, wisdom's playground. Conversations rich, interviews bright, from MDs to artists, sharing insight. Chemistry vibe, conversations ignite, steam dreams growing, future so bright. Chancellor May, Sidney Colley in the fold, M.K. Brown, Sheena Colley, stories told, Mike Zott, Robert Langer, wisdom gold, McCall Washington, young minds bold, Dr. Thomas N.G., Todd Golub, ignite, Abinaya Marcella, vision bright, Lesel Vincent, Sonola's insight, Michael Evans, cough under spotlight, Sarah Scrabalak, Nigella speak clear, Jake Desmond's vision future near, Mr. Bourne Kuna, Fortingo here, Darissa Ferguson, voices sincere. Guest list heavy, big names abound, academic and professional leaders, knowledge profound. Gary May, Robert Langer, Golden Sound, podcast lit, wisdom's playground. Conversations rich, interviews bright, from MDs to artists, sharing insight. Chemistry vibe, conversations ignite, steam dreams growing, future so bright. L.C. Campo, Emery Brown's precision, Lynn Rashay Johnson brings thoughtful vision. Keshav Gavin transclinical mission, Dick Mann and Johansson research ambition. Louis Junheim, Trevor Johnson's art, and Pinder speaking from the heart. David Joshua Ferguson plays his part, Chadwin Hanna, Vincent Miranda start. Greg Zuckerman writing from the Wall Street beat, Cordell Hardy's wisdom research elite, Kyle Woom Forbes list ambition complete, Gabriel Galarza's insights repeat. Guest list heavy, big names abound, academic and professional leaders, knowledge profound. Gary May, Robert Langer, Golden Sound, podcast lit, wisdom's playground. Conversations rich, interviews bright, from MDs to artists, sharing insight. Chemistry vibe, conversations ignite, steam dreams growing, future so bright. Dev Mandavia, corporate strategy bold, Jenai Burrows, medical stories unfold. Doreen Duncan's vision, Island City mold, Paul Boyer's lectures, stories retold. Omar Sharif Ali, software meta, economic talks, making minds better. Pranav Dorbala, med school go-getter. Ging Rahim Bia, engineering trendsetter. Savni Kulkarni, Abbott structural heart. Farm D candidate, giving advice to start. Podcast guest list, masterful art. New Chemist podcast, playing art part. Guest list heavy, names renowned, knowledge deep, skiing vibes profound. Podcast flowing, innovation sound, future so bright, keep dreams unbound.
Purpose of these episodes not at all for advice or medical suggestions. These are aimed to provide support to peer pharmacists in training in educational and intellectually stimulating ways. Again, these are not at all for medical advice or medical suggestions. Please see your local board and state-certified health professional. The views of this podcast represent those of my guests and I.
The Path to KOLs is a leading podcast, globally ranked across the world, in the United States, in the UK, in Finland, and Sweden. Our podcast has made significant strides in terms of reaching global audiences with engagement and also with scientific expertise. We've hosted the likes of Dr. Robert Langer, Chancellor Gary May, Kyle Woom, and a variety of other pioneers in their field and thought leaders as well. Today we have the distinguished honor of having Dr. Michael Morris. Dr. Michael Morris, MD, MS, DABR, DABNM, DCI, is a visionary physician scientist renowned for his contributions to nuclear medicine, diagnostic radiology, and clinical informatics. As a co-founder of United Theranostics and the medical director, Glen Burnie, Maryland, Dr. Morris has been instrumental in advancing radiopharmaceutical therapies and molecular imaging techniques, particularly in the treatment of prostate cancer and neuroendocrine tumors. Dr. Morris holds a Doctor of Medicine and a Master of Science degree. He is board certified by the American Board of Radiology, the American Board of Nuclear Medicine, and holds a diploma in clinical informatics. These certifications underscore his multidisciplinary expertise integrating advanced imaging, therapeutic interventions, and informatics to enhance patient care. Continuing on, at United Theranostics, Dr. Morris has been treating cancer patients with radiopharmaceutical therapy for nearly a decade. His dedication to excellence and patient-centered care has made the Chesapeake Center a preferred destination for patients in the Baltimore and Washington regions. Under his leadership, the center has become a hub for cutting-edge treatment. It's an honor, like I said, to have Dr. Morris with me today, and it's a treat to hear and gain some insights from him today. So as we begin, Dr. Morris, what first drew you into nuclear medicine, and how did your clinical and research experiences shape your vision for United Theranostics?
Hi, David. Thanks so much for having me. When I started out in medical school, my background was molecular and cellular biology, and I actually pursued a graduate degree in molecular and cellular biology. And during medical school, I really wasn't sure how I would be able to fit those skills into a career in medicine, because many of them were more basic science skills. Although I really enjoyed all of the molecular mechanisms of how our cells work, and it wasn't until my radiology residency that I really discovered the importance of that in nuclear medicine for better being able to evaluate our physiology using non-invasive approaches with imaging. And then what I realized, which really piqued my interest and kind of set me down this path, is that not only can these techniques in nuclear medicine give us really robust physiological imaging with things like PET-CT and SPECT-CT, which is really how we're evaluating most of the cancer biology today in terms of disease progression or response, diagnosis, and also some functional imaging for different physiology. But nuclear medicine can also give us therapeutic treatments that are very targeted using the radiopharmaceutical therapy approach, where we have the same type of molecule that we would use to image physiology, for instance, in PET or SPECT, but with a different radioisotope. And so that molecule has the same physiological targeting mechanism, but it has a different particle emission. And in the therapeutic setting, we utilize particles that can actually kill cancer cells from the inside, like beta particles or alpha particles primarily today, and there's some research in others like Auger electrons as well. And so these isotopes that we use in radiopharmaceutical therapy, like the lutetium-177 PSMA and the lutetium-177 dotatate, or iodine in the setting of thyroid cancers, can help us to actually treat different types of cancer specifically based on their target expression of either the PSMA molecule in prostate cancer or the somatostatin receptor in neuroendocrine tumor patients, or the sodium iodide symporter in the case of thyroid cancer. And this is just the beginning, really, because this is a concept that can be applied to many different types of disease processes in cancer. And actually, we have more therapeutics in current clinical trial status in radiopharmaceutical therapy than we do that are FDA approved. So this is a really rapidly growing area. It's not a new area. The treatment of iodine for thyroid diseases has been around since the 1930s, but with the FDA approval of Lutathera, lutetium-177 dotatate back in 2018, that really triggered a big shift where the pharmaceutical industry, particularly big pharma, has been recognizing the potential of these treatments to both help patients and also as a really viable option for cancer patients and working differently than some of the other approaches. And so when you have novel approaches like this that are fundamentally different in their mechanism of action compared to some of the other approaches that we've worked with, you really have the opportunity to not only help patients with a treatment that's more targeted, potentially more efficacious with less side effects, but it can also be potentially paired in the future with other more conventional treatments to even achieve synergistic responses. So for me, kind of combining this, the molecular approach to targeting in a area of medicine that can be both diagnostic and therapeutic, which when you put those words together, we get the field of theranostics, really interested me and is really my passion. That's why we started United Theranostics.
Wow, this is very good. I appreciate you sharing that story. So can you share a specific patient encounter or research finding that convinced you on your work in radiopharmaceutical therapy? What led to you having this passion? You spoke about your work in graduate school and you spoke about your passion for innovation. What else would you say has contributed to you doing the work? What keeps you going in this field?
Yeah, there's so many patient examples that I've had. One of the things that is particularly impressive to me is that oftentimes we see in the clinical trial results for radiopharmaceutical therapy that some patients are able to have a complete response from these treatments. And that doesn't necessarily mean that their disease is cured, although in the case of thyroid cancers, it is pretty well understood that we can cure thyroid cancer with iodine-131, for instance. That's the one that's been around for the longest, over 80 years now. And we have enough experience with it that we know how to use it very well to really treat patients when they have metastatic disease to even the lungs or the bone outside of the thyroid or lymph nodes, and really have them not have recurrence. I think for the other treatments like the Pluvicto and Lutathera, which are newer, I think that we have more work to do before we can really say that we can use them as effectively as iodine, which you have lots of experience with. But the fact that patients are having complete response, meaning that there is no evidence of residual detectable disease, even with the most sensitive imaging that we have with PSMA PET-CT or dotatate PET-CT, is super encouraging to me. Of course, that's a smaller percentage of patients, but the more we learn about these treatments, I think the more we'll be able to optimize and personalize them for specific patients. And there's more and more treatments that are coming that may be able to be used together as well. Like for instance, we enrolled some of the first patients in one of the first studies for actinium-225 dotatate in the United States. And this was an important study because it was the first time that actinium-225, the alpha emitter, was evaluated in an FDA clinical trial under FDA review. And in that study, we enrolled patients that previously had the Lutathera treatment and then did well with that, but later progressed. And we actually did the first in-human dosimetry, measuring the actual daughter decay emissions of the actinium-225 to better understand the dose that patients had to their healthy organs. And this really allowed us to better understand the safety profile of actinium-225 dotatate. And many of the patients that we had that had a great response from Lutathera, for instance, and then later had worsening or recurrent disease, responded very well to the actinium-225 dotatate and are still doing very well today. I think one of the most inspiring things for me with the radiopharmaceutical therapy treatments is that patients really tend to tolerate them very well, and they have very good quality of life while they're on them. So particularly with the neuroendocrine tumor patients, for instance, they may have really debilitating symptoms of their disease. A lot of times they have very severe GI issues or nausea. They may have a tough time even eating properly and getting their good nutrition. Some of them may struggle with severe pain, and these treatments tend to very much improve their symptoms of the disease even before we see changes in their tumor burden. And the ability to impact quality of life with these treatments, I think, is really the part that makes me feel the best about them, because many patients with cancer, regardless of the type, are oftentimes afraid that could the treatment be harder for me than the disease? And one of the benefits of radiopharmaceutical therapy is that oftentimes, patients have better quality of life on this treatment than they did before it, even before we see changes in their disease. And that's really encouraging to me. I had another patient with prostate cancer that did a clinical trial with us for lead-212 targeting the GRPR, that's another alpha emitter. And this patient came in, when he initially came into the office, he wasn't able to walk. He was brought into the office in a stretcher. And the patient completed the clinical trial, and then actually shortly after that, the Pluvicto became FDA approved, and they went on to have Pluvicto. And over the course of his treatment, he was coming in with a walker and actually able to do things that he liked to do, go out around the community, and had his mobility improving over the course of the treatment, had improved pain. And so these kind of things, seeing patients really do well over the course of treatment, I think is something that we're seeing more and more often with cancer treatments compared to the past, but is really encouraging, especially in the domain of radiopharmaceutical treatments. And I think it speaks to their targeted nature, being able to really target the disease process and have less effect on the patient's healthy organ function.
Okay, sounds good. So in terms of your work, beyond administering therapy, how do you design each clinic's patient journey, both medically and emotionally, to reflect your commitment to family-centered care?
Yeah, so, we really try to take a approach with our patients so that we understand their needs. We always, of course, invite their family members into the office to discuss the treatments before we decide if they're going to be a good candidate or before we decide to go ahead. And we try to go through all of the aspects of how the treatments work, any concerns they have, what questions they have. I think one of the biggest questions that people oftentimes have with the radiopharmaceutical therapy is the fact that these are treatments using radioisotopes and using radioactivity to treat disease can be really scary sometimes to patients. And so part of it is explaining how these work and how they're helpful in this context and not something to be afraid of. And we usually go through many of the ways that we can help the patients to live their lives with these treatments and not make it any different than when they didn't have the treatment for the folks that are around them. And so we really give personalized instructions for each patient and their family members after the patients have treatments for how to best have these treatments without causing any issues at home or for the family members. Of course, the treatments are helpful for the patients that have particular cancer like prostate cancer or neuroendocrine cancer or thyroid cancer, but they're not helpful for a family member that doesn't have those diseases around. So we really try to make it as if the patient did not have these treatments when they go home by giving them specialized instructions how to keep their family members and pets and the ones around them safe while they're having these treatments. And the other thing that we really try to focus on when patients are having radiopharmaceutical therapy is to really address any concerns that they're having while they're going through the treatments. For instance, if they're having particular side effects on the treatments like fatigue or dry mouth or some of these things which we can help them to treat and improve so that they don't have to experience these symptoms while they're going through treatments. We really try to focus on that when we see patients in follow-up between their treatments. Really try to manage these potential side effects that don't affect all patients but affect some, so that they can get through the treatments without having too much effect on their quality of life. And so I think really taking into context that we really have to treat the entire patient, not just the disease that we're focusing on. Also, many of the patients that are going through cancer in general struggle emotionally. They can have feelings of that are really difficult, and we try to also be aware of that and support our patients through the emotional challenges related to their disease and also their treatment as well. And sometimes their family members around them can also benefit from that. So we really try to have a full picture and idea of what's going on with our patients, and really take that in consideration while we're helping them through the treatments and coaching them in the clinic.
Wow, this is amazing. This is commendable. So in terms of radiopharmaceutical therapy, from my understanding, it demands specialized skills. And how are your partnerships designed in such a way, or how do you design your organization in such a way so that you're able to maintain these cutting-edge modalities?
Yeah, so most of our facilities have very advanced PET, CT, and SPECT CT systems. So positron emission tomography and single photon emission computed tomography. These systems allow us to really follow the treatments and also the disease processes of the patients over the paradigm of care. And this is one of the things that's really unique to nuclear medicine. Our treatments are very image guided, and the management of the treatment is dependent on how we evaluate the patient's disease course with the imaging. And so we see the patients initially and evaluate their disease with some specific PET-CT imaging, typically, for instance, PSMA PET-CT in the setting of prostate cancer. We develop our treatment plan based around the patient's personal expression of the disease and its PSMA, its prostate-specific membrane antigen positivity, and then develop our treatment plan, treat the patient with the PSMA-targeted lutetium-177 Pluvicto, and then have the patient come back to evaluate the dose to their healthy organs with post-treatment SPECT-CT imaging for dosimetry. And this is an area that we've really been pioneering also in the clinical trial setting to really develop a regular routine clinical protocol to evaluate a patient's normal organ dose from these radiopharmaceuticals, because that's what limits how much they can really have over their lifetime, and also may impact significantly the particular clinical trial side effects that they may have, or the ability that they may have to receive some of these other treatments coming into the clinical trial side. And so we really closely manage these patients with the imaging, and having the ability to do the most advanced PET-CT and SPECT-CT imaging in our clinics, and also to do very high throughput gamma counting for the clinical trial setting to be able to evaluate the uptake of these treatments into the blood or excretion into the urine for our patients, gives us a really specialized approach. So it's more than just administering a treatment or coaching and managing the patients through treatment and the safety instructions and safety around the radiopharmaceuticals and radioisotopes that we manage. It's really a comprehensive care model where we really have a close overview of the patient's disease throughout the entire treatment using these advanced imaging approaches that are really unique to nuclear medicine. So it's a very specialized niche field, and I expect that having all of these ways to quantify our treatments and our treatment planning will really help us as we go into the future after more and more of these treatments become FDA approved in the post-market refinement of these treatments and optimizing them over time to really deliver an even more personalized approach, just like we did with iodine-131 for thyroid cancer over the past 80 years.
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing, Dr. Morris. That's amazing. So, what mentorship structures, such as fellowship, continuing education programs, or peer-to-peer networks, are you putting in place or assisting with developing the next generation of leaders in nuclear medicine?
David, that is one of the most important things that we can do to assure that the future of our field, the future of nuclear medicine, the future of radiopharmaceutical therapy is bright for patients, because we really need to train the next generation. And we're trying to do our part. There's lots of institutions that are also doing their parts. We need strong nuclear medicine residency programs throughout the United States, which actually over the past 10 or 20 years, some of the nuclear medicine programs have actually gotten smaller across the United States. Before some of these new treatments came into the field, there were less and less trainees going into nuclear medicine. And now more people have realized the need for more people specializing in nuclear medicine in the future. Some of these programs are beginning to expand again, and some new programs are underway to open up. We really need to take care of the training programs in the next generation. I know everyone in our field is committed to this. We have nuclear oncology fellows in our practice, which are usually folks that did their nuclear medicine residency or sometimes diagnostic radiology residency with interest or subsequent training in nuclear medicine, and then are interested really in specializing in this area of nuclear oncology and theranostics. And so we have those trainees coming through our program. They usually will spend a year or two with us to gain the skills specific to the treatment of patients in the theranostics paradigm. And the Society of Nuclear Medicine and Molecular Imaging is supporting some of these programs at other institutions as well. We also work with the Institute of Nuclear Medicine, which is a nonprofit really dedicated towards education and also building the future of nuclear medicine through research opportunities for current and future trainees. Some of the students that we work with in the Institute of Nuclear Medicine are currently in various stages of their training. They could be in pre-college, for instance, for summer students, in high school, all the way up to college students, post-baccalaureate students, postdoctoral students, and not just unique to medicine, but also our physicists. Training in radiopharmaceuticals is very important as well for this field. So some of them will be physicists, sometimes computer scientists. It's really a group of specialties that all come together to be able to really make these specialized areas work. And our evaluation of the patient's disease and their management as robust as possible. We also have folks coming over while they're in medical training, for instance, for various research pathways. Some students will take a year off and do a research program with us, for instance, and then go back to their training. Many of those students have gone on to do dual board specialization in diagnostic radiology and nuclear medicine. One of the things that we're really excited about is actually working towards developing a nuclear medicine residency program ourselves that will focus primarily on students that are interested in training specifically in the theranostics and nuclear oncology paradigm of nuclear medicine. We're not quite there yet, but it's going to be coming over the next year or two. We're working very closely with the residency review committee for nuclear medicine and also some of the academic institutions near our sites to support the potential for our trainees to also get some of the inpatient experiences that our centers may not provide during training. And once this comes together, I think that we'll be able to offer really one of the top-notch residency programs, especially for medical students that want to specialize in this area of theranostics with their nuclear medicine training. So we're trying to help the next generation across all of the different areas. Some we're doing actively today, some will be for the future. And then it's not just physicians, but also other specialties that support us, like radiopharmacists, physicists, and computer scientists, and others. We're a very, very scientific specialty.
Okay, wow, that is very good. That is commendable. It's good to have a support strategy in place. So how are you leveraging telehealth, remote monitoring, or AI-driven analytics, if you use that, to optimize your work in the field currently? Or how do you see that optimizing your work in the future?
Sure, yeah. I mean, we use AI every day for our semi-automated segmentation of the normal organs when we're doing quantification, also for semi-automated segmentation of tumors for assessment of our quantification, the development of our dosimetry techniques. We're also more and more using AI to help us to better understand a patient's complete picture when they get referred to us from the outside. And we have, sometimes, hundreds of pages of prior medical records to be able to organize that in an efficient way and present that in a standardized way for our process to be able to better understand the patient's prior treatments and characterize those. We also structure some of our own reports and notes using some of these tools, and that allows us to really tailor our notes or reports for particular referring providers. So one oncology group may like a report a certain way, and another group, maybe an endocrinology or urology or radiation oncology, may like it another way. And so we can dynamically adjust these things using AI and computational methods. We also more and more are using some of these tools to help us with dictation as well. We can really, in an automated way, bring over some of our annotations now in the images into our reporting, which can help to not only make reporting easier for the physicians and more reliable, but also allow our referring physicians to better interact with our reports and annotations and measurements to better understand their patients' diseases. And then we can also use some of these tools to collect discrete data. So we really, when we're trying to understand a patient's picture, we really try to collect data similarly to the way that we would in a clinical trial, where we use well understood metrics that are discretely quantified, so we can follow these patients over time and better develop inferences on how a particular patient will do in a particular context based on their unique experiences and clinical presentation. And I think that that's going to continue to develop over time as we have more patients reported on in this way, and more ability to use those clinical outcomes measures together with our imaging to better understand not only the disease process, but also which treatments are going to be best for our patients.
Okay, wow, this is good, Dr. Morris. It is very good. So, on a lighter note, what advice would you give to someone who sees the work you're doing and they're captivated and they want to pursue nuclear medicine? What advice would you give medical students and potentially pharmacy students or future clinicians who are interested in nuclear medicine? What advice would you give them? What do you think is a good mindset to have when entering and when operating in the field? And what has been some beneficial advice that you have received?
Sure, yeah, I think, the best advice that I received when I was going through medical school was that if you find an area that you're really passionate about and that you enjoy doing in your daily life, then it never really feels like work. And I think that's really important because in medicine and nuclear medicine or any of the medical specialties, we really spend a lot of our time working. And if it's not something that you're really passionate about, it can be potentially draining to people. And so I think that it's really important to find something that they really like. And if people are passionate about nuclear medicine and they really want to spend their time doing it, then the next step is to find a good mentor. For me, my mentor during training was Dr. Elliot Siegel, who's one of the co-founding physicians working with me today in United Theranostics. And one of our other co-founding physicians is Dr. Babak Sabori, who trained with me, was also mentored by Dr. Elliot Siegel, and also Abbas Alavi, who was one of the founding fathers of FDG for PET imaging today in humans. And finding a good mentor that really inspires you and encourages you to think out of the box and challenges you can be really one of the most indispensable things that really not only helped me to develop my passion for nuclear medicine, but still to this day continues to inspire me. And these people are people that you can rely on when you need help along the way, whether it's a recommendation for a program or for a research opportunity or summer experience to get more involved in the field. And they can also provide advice and wisdom on your career path, goals, and even make introductions to other people who may be able to help across the career. I think for nuclear medicine, finding the best training program that you can to train is really important today. That usually means getting training in both diagnostic radiology and nuclear medicine, although there are still some training programs that people go directly into nuclear medicine. I think for me, having the diagnostic radiology skill set as well was very helpful. Although I would also encourage people that are interested in nuclear medicine not to get too distracted. So what I found is that some people that do, for instance, diagnostic radiology and nuclear medicine also may do other areas within diagnostic radiology, which takes time away from the nuclear medicine aspect. And many of those folks have gotten to where they can't spend as much time on the nuclear medicine side as they'd like to. So I think the more that you focus and can tailor your experiences to allow you to really maximize your time in the specialty that you're interested in, particularly if you're coming from a background with dual board certification training in both diagnostic radiology and nuclear medicine, can be helpful and important. And I think that being at an institution that really fosters the multidisciplinary experiences can be very helpful. So if you are at a training program that has radiopharmacy or has radiochemistry and has nuclear medicine physics there, I think that allows for a lot of collaborative approaches. We work very closely at United Theranostics with the folks at BC Cancer in Vancouver, and they have one of these really nice multidisciplinary teams, for instance, that really provides a rich environment, I think, for training, particularly for the physicists, radiochemists, and radiopharmacists that are interested. So I think that first identifying your passion, then finding a mentor, finding a good training program, making sure you sit for your boards. There's a lot of folks that have been interested or curious in nuclear medicine, coming from other specialties, and had all the opportunity to get good training or to take the boards, and then for whatever reason may decide not to. And I think that's a real loss. If you spend the time, then sit for the boards, study hard, take them, and then the community will embrace you. And we have a lot of work to do as we go into the future. We need good, successful trainees, and so always don't hesitate to reach out and ask for help along the way. I think that's really important.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Morris. I highly appreciate your time today. It's definitely a distinguished honor to have you on the podcast and to chat with you. So once again, folks, you have it today. This is a Path to KOLs, a podcast in which we host some of the brilliant and pioneering minds in the fields, whether it be pharma, science, education, engineering, or medicine. Thanks again for listening.
Thanks so much, David.
Purpose of these episodes not at all for advice or medical suggestions. These are aimed to provide support to peer pharmacists in training in educational and intellectually stimulating ways. Again, these are not at all for medical advice or medical suggestions. Please see your local board and state-certified health professional. The views of this podcast represent those of my guests and I.
Guest list heavy, big names abound, academic and professional leaders, knowledge profound. Gary May, Robert Langer, Golden Sound, podcast lit, wisdom's playground. Conversations rich, interviews bright, from MDs to artists, sharing insight. Chemistry vibe, conversations ignite, steam dreams growing, future so bright. Chancellor May, Sidney Colley in the fold, MK Brown, Sheena Colley stories told, Mike Zott, Robert Langer, wisdom gold, McCall Washington, young minds bold, Dr. Thomas N.G., Todd Golub ignite, Abinaya Marcella, vision bright, Lesel Vincent, Sonola's insight, Michael Evans, cough under spotlight, Sarah Scrabalak, Nigella speak clear, Jake Desmond's vision future near, Mr. Bourne Kuna, Ford Tingo here, Darissa Ferguson, voices sincere. Guest list heavy, big names abound, academic and professional leaders, knowledge profound. Gary May, Robert Langer, Golden Sound, podcast lit, wisdom's playground. Conversations rich, interviews bright, from MDs to artists, sharing insight. Chemistry vibe, conversations ignite, steam dreams growing, future so bright. LC Campo, Emery Brown's precision, Lynn Rashay Johnson brings thoughtful vision. Keshav Gavin transclinical mission, Dick Mann and Johansson research ambition. Louis Jungheim, Trevor Johnson's art, and Pinder speaking from the heart. David Joshua Ferguson plays his part, Chadwin Hanna, Vincent Miranda start. Greg Zuckerman writing from the Wall Street beat, Cordell Hardy's wisdom research elite, Kyle Woom Forbes list ambition complete, Gabriel Galarza's insights repeat. Guest list heavy, big names abound, academic and professional leaders, knowledge profound. Gary May, Robert Langer, Golden Sound, podcast lit, wisdom's playground. Conversations rich, interviews bright, from MDs to artists, sharing insight. Chemistry vibe, conversations ignite, steam dreams growing, future so bright. Dev Mandavia, corporate strategy bold, Jenai Burrows, medical stories unfold. Doreen Duncan's vision, Island City mold, Paul Boyer's lectures, stories retold. Omar Sharif Ali Software Meta Economic Talks Making Minds Better Pranav Dorbala Med School Go-Getter Ging Rahim Bia Engineering Trendsetter Savni Kulkarni Abbott Structural Heart Farm D Candidate Giving Advice to Start Podcast Guest List Masterful Art New Chemist Podcast Playing Art Part Guest List Heavy Names renowned Knowledge deep skiing Vibes profound Podcast flowing, innovation sound. Future so bright, keep dreams unbound.